So, good evening, everybody. This is your 1 hour and a little bit of restorative yoga. I just give you a small introduction on what restorative is or not is. Restorative is not about stretching. Restorative is not about doing. Restorative is about releasing. So, releasing in the joint, releasing in the muscles, releasing the mind, the breath, balancing the nervous system from opening, not stretching. So we don't really want to be pulling neither. That's more a yin practice. So it's a different practice, restorative and yin. And we really want to be practicing in the present. So I invite you to take a comfortable seat. You will need some props for this practice. So if you have yoga bolsters, you can definitively use them, a yoga chair or a wall. Blankets, as many as you can. 3 blocks if you have, and I'll give you the alternatives in a moment. And then a strap if you have. So if you don't have bolsters, take extra blankets or towels work as well. If you don't have blocks, you can take thick books. If you don't have thick books, just take a couple of books that are about the same size, wrap them in a paper, like make a present for yourself and use those as blocks. We're not gonna really press on them, but we're gonna use them to level, to go a little bit higher in our poses. So let's start by finding a comfortable seated position. And if you prefer to lay down to start, that's perfect as well, especially if your day was a little bit crazy and you really need to arrive here. I would suggest just to lay down. If you're afraid to fall asleep, then maybe you want to sit. So you can do this practice before going to bed. I would also suggest that after your practice, and if you're going to bed after, to not jump onto your phone again, unless you really have to. But just to keep the mind calm, the nervous system balanced. So if your mind is going all directions, instead of directly closing the eyes, keep them half open and focus on one point, but without really naming it, just focusing on that point and putting all your attention to that point. So your mind is slowly starting to let other things out by focusing on that point. You might have to repractice that a few times, but it's a good way, because if you immediately close your eyes, then it's very well possible that your mind is still going every direction, and just closing the blinds is not going to solve it. So let's start by that. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes if that's comfortable. We're just going to observe the breath for a moment. Don't change anything, especially if you had a crazy day and you're making the time now for your practice. You do want to really be present and arrive here. Pay a little bit more attention to the exhale now. And slowly starting to make the exhale a little bit longer. That's going to calm your body systems, your heart, your breathing, hopefully your thinking. So the breath is calm, but the exhale a little bit longer and longer and longer. And then from your breath, start to gently scan your body. So just as if you were hovering over your body, feeling where there is a little bit more tension or heat or even pain. Just observing, just becoming aware as we lay calmly on the floor, we sit. Where do I hold tension? Is it just maybe because you've been holding tension all day, or that's just your pattern to maybe hold in the shoulders, or the thighs, or the neck, or the forehead? So as you observe if it's just temporary now because you're not all settled yet, or is it really a pattern that you might not be able to really discriminate, to say, is this a habit or is this really how I am all the time and just part of me? And then the next question to ask is, do I need this tension? What is it holding? Does it serve me? And whatever the answer, see if with your exhale you can release a little bit. So maybe you need to take a few breaths, a few exhales. Before you can connect with that body part. And once you finish the scan of your body, come back to your breath. And very slowly, if you're lying down, bring the knees into the chest, rolling over to the right side and coming up into a seated position. So we are going to start with a supported child's pose as our first pose. This is going to bring calmness. This is going to bring opening in the lower back, creating some space for your kidneys. This is going to bring comfort. So what we need for this is 1 or 2 bolsters or blankets. And you want to place them quite high because we don't want to overdo the stretch into the back. If your knees are hurting when you're sitting on your heels, take a blanket and place it behind your knees. So you really want to place it in the knee, in the crease here, and then you have a little bit more support. We are going to go forward. So it's really like if you're sitting like this, it might not be comfortable, but since we're going forward, it's just so that your hips don't fall all the way down and then hurt your knees. If your ankles are not comfortable being all the way open, place a little roll here, like a towel or something here, so that you can just rest. Because if we have to hold onto the toes the whole time, the body will not be able to relax. And then one more option that you can use is take a block, especially if your height is not very high, and you can place it at the end so that it's more of an inclination. So I'll use the orange bolster so you can see it better. So if you are really not comfortable sitting on your knees, you can take the chair And you can widen your legs. The reason with wide legs, the reason we use a chair is because otherwise you really need to go way too deep and then it becomes a stretch. And then you're going to bend your arms and place your forehead onto your bent arms. So that's the option if your knees are really hurting. Otherwise, you're going to separate the knees, bring the bolster of the blankets just in between your knees. And then you want to, first of all, take a breath in, create some space, and then very slowly walk your hands forward. And here you automatically are going to decide which side, which ear you want to place onto your support. So if you're higher up, if you have two bolsters, let's say, just make sure you make space for your chest. So push the bolster a little bit more forward. And then make sure that your forearms are resting on the floor. So you want to make sure your forearms are resting on the floor and not just floating here, because then it becomes a hold and muscles will have to work to hold that. So you really want to find that comfort. So it's important to have almost nothing disturbing you, because otherwise the nervous system is going to get triggered. So take your time to find your pose, find your asana, so that once you're in there, you can release. So it's not about forcing to not to think. It's not about forcing to calm the breath. So it's not meditation, but you will definitely come in a very meditative state. It's just the nature of the poses that we do. So once you're in the comfortable position, allow your body to find, to settle. And at a certain moment, you can just let go the breath, let it become very, very natural. We're going to stay here for a couple of minutes, and then I will offer you the option to turn the head. So don't worry about it. I will tell you halfway. If you want to turn the head, it's absolutely no must. So this pose is really good if you have mild forms of depression or you have a down day, you're really tired, and you just want to cocoon in, but you know you have still a lot to do. So just doing this for a couple of minutes. Or it's also very good if you have headaches, if you feel a migraine coming up. You can do this even in your car. Stop driving, sit yourself on the side, cross your arms on your steering wheel, place your forehead on your arms, and come to a very calm breath. Give yourself that time. So don't worry if you don't hear my voice. I'm here. If you wanted to change sides with your head, reconnect gently with your breath. Then press into your hands, lift yourself up a little bit, turn your head to the other side, bring your ear down, and allow your neck to settle. If it's really not comfortable, go back to the other side. There's absolutely, again, no must to change sides. And we'll stay here for another 3 minutes. So if you want to stay longer here, give yourself that gift. If this just starts to feel good, why not? If you're ready to come out and do the next pose, again, reconnect with your breath very gently. Don't start to deepen too much, just becoming aware of the breath. And then press yourself up, press into your hands, walk your hands back. And if you're on your knees, you probably want to stretch out your legs. So very slowly moving between the poses. You can bend your knees, you can gently bring your head down a little bit, observing how you feel without questioning, just being here. And then we're ready for the next one. So the next one I like to do to get a little bit of a rotation in the belly. We don't stay very long in this pose, so I'll show you the chair alternative in a moment. You can leave your bolster as it is, and we're just gonna sit with our hip against the bolster, and then we bend our knees. So if you need a little bit of padding somewhere, please go ahead. So you want to find a little bit of comfort. For the moment, it's possible that your other hip is a little bit compressed, but don't worry, we're gonna lay down on the bolster. So first of all, we're gonna inhale and lengthen the spine. And as you exhale, rotate towards the bolster. And when I say bolster, I also mean blankets. Place both your hands down. So if you have the two bolsters on top of each other, you probably want to take one off. Walk your hands forward And then place again one ear onto your bolster. So here it's really going to depend on how flexible you are in the neck, if you're going to look away from your knees or towards your knees. And you want to make sure that you go maybe a little bit further by flattening the belly onto the bolster. So it's not about stretching, remember that. It's about releasing. So don't go too far. Place your head onto your bolster. If you need a pillow or a blanket underneath to come a little bit higher, please do so. If you are using the chair, so if this is not comfortable for your knees, we're going to go for a very simple chair twist, which again you can do anytime during the day. So sitting on your chair, we're going to inhale, lengthen the spine, exhale, turn to the side, grab the back of the chair or the side or even the armrest. The other hand rests on your thigh, on your knee. Lower the back, shoulder, so that your shoulder doesn't tickle your ear. And then inhale, lengthen, and just only twist as far as is really comfortable. So what we're trying also to do in restorative yoga is to get away from a reaction of the sensations. So if I'll take a very simple one. If someone is cooking in the house and it smells really good, but we're starting to really become hungry and say, oh, I want to go down, I want to go down, I want to go eat. Maybe just taking in the good smell and let it go. Same for any sensation of pain, of joy, of need to stretch further. Anything. What we want to do is staying very neutral, equanimity. So if you're on the floor, we are going to go to the other side, but by all means, you can stay here. So very gently press into your hands. Turn your back to the bolster. Turn to the other side. And then get yourself ready to twist here. So inhale, lengthen. Place one hand on each side. Walk your hands forward. And then place that ear facing your knees or to the other side. Same thing on your chair, going to the other side. So the key is to find length in the spine so that as you exhale and release, you find comfort. Keep the calm breaths. Couple more breaths here. And then very slowly placing the hands down, press yourself up and turn around. So the next one we'll do is gonna relax the whole body, open the shoulders a little bit and the throat. So the throat, there's often a lot of tension. You might not feel it physically so much, but when we are not allowed to speak up or to speak our mind, or we have things to say. And I think especially in these hard times that we're all living, we have maybe a lot of frustration or sadness, or just it's all in here and everybody's in the same boat. And so we don't always want to speak up because sometimes we feel like there are people worse off than us, but we still have all these feelings and they get stopped here in your throat. So we are going to release in the throat. And for this one, you don't need a chair. You will need two bolsters if you do have two bolsters, or blankets. So you want to create a long boat to use it with your bolsters. So if you don't have that much of blankets or bolsters, take blankets. The most important one is this, that is going to cover your from your tailbone to your shoulders. So I would suggest also to take a blanket. So when you move around, just move slowly. Take a blanket just in case your head is falling back too much. And you need some space behind your bolster. So we are going to sit down. And as we go along with these classes, we're gonna add a few more things, like using the strap for this one to keep the legs together. So if you have a strap handy and there is already a buckle, you can definitively place that around your lower legs if you want to. If you don't have the long bolster, like the double one, you don't need anything around your legs. So you're just going to keep that to the side. So now you're going to start to roll yourself back. My knees are still bent. And I'm going to make sure that eventually my shoulders are going to touch the floor. So just play a little bit with your t-shirts because they are always rolling in an annoying way. So my shoulders are back. If your lower back hurts, keep your knees bent. So even if you have this long bolster, your lower back is sensitive in general, keep your knees bent. Otherwise, you can lengthen out your legs. Make sure you're stable. So as you can see, I have put a blanket under my head. I can do without. But the blanket should touch the shoulders. So don't push the blankets under your shoulders, otherwise they're not gonna come down. And if this is not comfortable for you, if this is really too much of an opening in the chest, then maybe lower what you're lying on to. Just take one blanket and then bring your arms in a T and then relax. Also a very good pose for high blood pressure. Your shoulders really have to touch the floor. Chest is opening, so creating space into the chest. If your knees are bent and your feet flat on the floor, you can separate your feet a little bit more and then let your knees fall together so that you don't have to keep them up, that they just support each other. If this pose becomes uncomfortable, you move out, take the bolsters away, and just lay down in Shavasana. So there is no point in being in an uncomfortable pose in restorative yoga or any time. We're not going anywhere with trying to prove that we can do this pose. On the contrary, we're irritating our sympathetic nervous system and creating stress at a very deep level. So let's not do this. So again, stay here as long as you want. Usually don't stay too long into this pose. But if this feels really comfortable for you, enjoy it. To come out again, reconnect with your breath. If your knees are not bent, bend your knees. Then you want to place your hands behind your head just so that you can lift, so you don't have to do too much effort. And then slowly lift yourself up or roll to one side, just taking into account that you can be quite high. So when you roll over, it can be a little bit too high. Take your time to arrive back. And then we're going to move to the queen of the restorative poses. So here you can really search for all the blankets, the pillows you have. It's here that we're going to use the strap if you have it and the blocks. So I'm going to build a construction here. So you're going to take 3 blocks and the highest side goes to the most to the back, middle size in the middle, and then the lowest side, oops, the lowest size is going in the front. That was funny. And then I'm placing my bolster on it or your blankets on it. So you really want to have something that's more or less solid. And so if you don't have all this, you can top with pillows underneath. Just we want to reach this inclination. So this inclination is quite important to calm our go, go, go. So from here, again, if you know that your chin tilts back easily, you might want to put a blanket underneath at the top for your head. And then we have 2 options for the legs. So you can keep your legs straight. I would then suggest to put something underneath your knees so that your knees are bent and everything can be relaxed in the hips. The other option is to take the strap and you have a buckle and then you're gonna make it quite long. So the loop is gonna be quite long. You pass it behind you, behind your lower back. And then you're gonna open your legs in butterfly. So the strap comes in between your legs and then around your feet. You don't want to bring your heels too close to your groin. So it's really just to keep the feet together so you can tighten the strap a little bit. But as you go back, it's going to tighten a little bit more. So just be ready to maybe undo it if it's too tight. And then you don't want to have your legs like flying as a butterfly, as beautiful as they are. your groin is not going to be very happy after a couple of minutes because we are going to stay a while in this pose. So you want to place something underneath your knees that are going to support you. So make sure it's high enough. Take something soft so that as your hips are maybe opening a little bit, it's resting on something soft. It's not pushing back. So it's again that sensory um, feeling that if we are on something really solid, it's going to push. Here we just release into whatever is below. And then very slowly lay down. So if this hurts your lower back, maybe come back up, place a blanket so that from your bum to your lower back, it's a little bit more rounded, more soft. Find a comfortable place, open your knees, or keep your legs straight, and then release your arms to the side. So for some people, this is really a big opening in the chest. So if this is too much, you can always place your hands on your belly, as long as you don't have to hold. So maybe you have to bring them a little bit closer. Maybe you want to use a strap or even blankets. So if your arms are on the side and they're like floating, again, make sure that you put something underneath. Ideally, your hands will be higher than your elbows, but that's not always possible. So if it is, if you have enough blankets, you go for it. And then make sure that you are a prince or a princess, that there is no green pea bothering you, that's triggering your nervous system, and then you start to relax. So important for restorative practice is that you're in an environment that is quiet, that is warm enough, that is safe, where you will not be disturbed. And so this pose is really good if you're very, very agitated. So in cases of mild to medium anxiety, it's a very calming pose. Also, it's good if you're grieving in case of trauma. This is really the queen of the restorative poses. When I teach in person, I come and tuck you under. I do little adjustments if needed, if you ask for it. Because we really want to be able to stay here for a good 10-15 minutes. If you're restless and you're like, ooh, 10-15 minutes, give yourself that gift at least to explore if it's the first time. We'll stay here for a few more breaths, unless you want to stay longer. Please do. Very slowly start to reconnect with your breath. And then press yourself up to a seated position. If your legs are in butterfly, take the strap away, place your hands on the outside of your knees and bring your knees together. So no efforts with the muscles here. And then just bend over your knees, drop your head down. And take a few breaths, observing. No understanding, no question, just being there. And then we're just gonna keep one blanket or one bolster for our final Shavasana if needed. But first, we'll go with the legs up the wall or the legs up the chair. So I'll show you the two alternatives. So again, move very slowly, move your props out of the way. If you have a wall that you can use, you are gonna take one blanket or the bolster, depending, and place it, depending on your hamstrings, close or a little bit further. It's always easier to move back than to move towards the wall. So you're gonna sit on the edge of your bolster or blanket. And then place your hands in the back, and we're gonna pivot on our tailbone. So you're gonna pivot and then bring your legs up. So place your feet against the wall, and if you have a blanket, it's not necessary, but if you have a blanket or a bolster, make sure that your tailbone falls off. So you create like a little scoop with your belly, and then lift your legs up the wall. So no stretching in the hamstrings. So if your hamstrings are tight, you're gonna place your feet against the wall and then wiggle yourself back a little bit. If you're too far, I would suggest to come out and start all over again. So you really want to find comfort here. Your knees are straight but not locked. If you feel that you have to hold your legs too much so that they can remain straight, next time just take a strap, place it around your thighs or your legs, your tibia, your calves. And then your arms, choose what works for you. So you can have Shavasana arms, you can bring them to the side, or you can even come into cactus. But just make sure that you don't stretch. If you don't have a wall, you have a chair or you have a sofa, then I would suggest to use that. Also, if you know that your feet have a tendency to tingle, needles in the feet, this might be a better option for you. So same thing, you're gonna sit close to the chair or the sofa and then come back a little bit with your upper body, pivot on your tailbone, bring the calves onto the chair. And then you wanna make sure that your hips are heavy on the floor. So if your hips are kind of floating, you're gonna have to hold somewhere. So then take a blanket and put it there. If you feel that it's like your knees are higher up on the chair because your upper legs are really long compared to the chair, then place a blanket on the chair. So adjust as needed and then come here and then relax. Again, your arms. Feel the comfortable pose that you can stay for the next couple of minutes. So So this pose is really good in case of insomnia, if you wake up in the middle of the night or if you can't fall asleep because you have too many thoughts or your body is too tense. So what this is going to do is first relax your body, relax all the muscles. And then the next thing, once your body is relaxed, then your mind can relax. So that is the same principle as in meditation. We do all our asanas, all our yoga poses, so to prepare the body to sit in meditation. If your body is tense or if it's hurting somewhere or it's just too stiff to sit, your mind is never going to become calm. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and you have the space behind your bed, I would just turn around, lift your legs up the wall, and then stay here until you feel really ready that you're going to fall asleep. And then very slowly turn around and go to sleep. It's also very good if you have been standing on your feet all day to rest your legs. It's a good flush also for the lymphatic system. There's no pump for the lymphatic system, so here you're reversing everything. can stay here for your Shavasana, final relaxation. You can just stay a little bit longer and then move into your Shavasana. If you want to get out, whether your legs are up the wall or on the chair, bring your feet against the side of the chair or against the wall, bend your knees. Stay here for a few breaths and then gently roll over to your right side if that's comfortable for you. And again, stay here for a few breaths. And then slowly make your way to your final relaxation, your Shavasana. So for a little bit more comfort for the lower back, you can take a blanket or a bolster and place it under your knees. Also making sure that the neck and the head is supported. So if you need to put something under your head, not under your shoulders, do that. And then come into your final relaxation. So the asana doesn't happen, or the yoga doesn't happen in your asana. The yoga happens after your practice. The residues of your poses. It's what the real yoga is. So stay here as long as you want, as long as you need. Never forget that if you only have 5 or 10 minutes a day to practice yoga, practice Shavasana. First and foremost, we need to balance the nervous system, lower our stress levels, and restorative yoga is the best practice for that. So stay where you are, and whenever you decide to come out, you're going to bend your knees, turn to your right side, come into a seated position, and just stay there. And then be grateful to yourself, maybe to your environment, that you can practice in peace and take care of yourself. Namaste.